Welcome to another edition of Inside Carolina's Next Level, where Greg Barnes and myself get a little deeper than the normal game type, game story, stuff like that. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. That's Greg Barnes. I'm Tommy Ashley. Today, we have North Carolina offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey. Coach Lindsey, appreciate you taking the opportunity to join us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
It's going to be a fun conversation, but I'm going to lob you a softball right out of the gate. Year two at North Carolina. Describe for our listeners and readers and watchers what's it like being in year two versus when you came in last year. Uh, the fire hose was wide open last year, and now has it slowed down any for you?
Yeah, I think it has. You're right. You come in during a time when they're preparing for a bowl game and get your feet wet with that and really just getting to know the players and the personalities and really the names of each kid. And, those are all challenges that you deal with. But, for me, when I first got here, I wasn't I wasn't doing the game plan. I was able to just watch and observe and really try to build relationships with the players. I think that was the one thing Coach Brown and I talked about. For me to come early was a good option for that. And so it was really good. And then by the time we got to spring, names and faces, but you're still, trying to understand who can do what and what everybody's best skill set is, and put the pieces in place and so forth. And then you build it all the way through the summer and doing your summer work and being able to do that. And then bam, it's time for the season. And once you get in that rhythm of the season, it just rolls by. You get in that rhythm each and every week. And in some ways, it feels like I've been here a lot longer than a year and a half, but it was definitely drinking from the fire hose, kind of transition for sure. But year two's been the start of it, going through spring, knowing the players now and having the same coaching staff. I think that continuity of having the same offensive staff come back together, a huge difference. I mean, we all kind of know how each other think, play our part. One thing I can't brag enough on is our staff. I mean, those guys do a great job when they're in charge of certain things, whether it's game planning, whether it's managing their players, whether it's, thinking about things that happen before they're going to happen. I know as a head coach, that was always something that was awesome when you had assistants who kind of could see things coming and take care of things on their own. So all those are good things. And you find those things when you have a staff with a lot of continuity coming back, it just makes things flow a lot easier for sure.
Coach, when last season ended, I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, what is your approach when you say, okay, the season's done, now I need to go back and see what worked, what didn't work? How do you go about that process before you get into preparing for spring ball and in the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think, if you look at last year when we finished the bowl game, you go right into recruiting. So you really have about 5 weeks before you can dive into, the season, about, the things you did well, things you didn't do well, the things that you want to take a look at in the offseason. So the month of February is really big for that when it's a dead period. And, I think we did that. We did a deep dive into our own selves and, hey, what were we good at? What were we not so good at? And then also trying to predict, okay, these are the guys we have coming back, and here's what they do well. Last year coming in, the offense had been successful, so I didn't want to, just be night and day different. I wanted to do things that obviously Drake did well and that he was comfortable with, and I think we did a lot of that. At the same time, everybody's got new ideas and new flavors they want to add to the offense, and especially in our run game, we were a lot different in the run game last year, and happy with a lot of things we did, but there's always room to improve. There's always areas we need to improve on. And we're very proud of, of what we did offensively, but at the same time, it's still about finishing the season better and really, doing a better job when it's in those bigger games toward the end of the season of continuing to play at a high level. And that's something we're still striving to do.
When you came in, sort of building off that, when you came in, you mentioned Drake. You had Drake.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, here's the keys to a really
Mm-hmm.
nice car. Well,
Mm-hmm.
with this year, you don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you got to figure out what you have. How is it for an offensive coordinator to sort of have something? Okay, I've got to blend my skills into what we have already versus now I can take what we have already and sort of blend that into my plan. If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think I have a high school background, and so you when high school, you don't get to necessarily pick your players, right? So you have to be able to adapt and build your offense around the strengths of your players. And, that's one thing I've learned over the years, being a high school coach, working for Gus Malzahn, who was a longtime high school coach, is our offense is we want to build it around the strengths of our players. When I got here last year, I knew Amari Hampton had a lot of talent and was going to be, I thought, a phenomenal player. And we had to figure ways to run the football better. That was one of the things Coach Brown charged me with when I got here. I want to improve in the run game. I think Drake was the leading rusher the year before, which he did a nice job of that, but we'd rather Amari run it more than him if we could. And that was kind of our approach. And, and then be better at protecting the quarterback, which we were. Still areas we can improve. So, now we have a different team. Obviously, Drake's gone, Tez Walker's gone, but we got a lot of people coming back, and we've added some pieces through the transfer portal. And I think in the spring, our goal in the spring was to install a base offense and have a good understanding of what that looks like, and make sure our players understand and try to define who we are. We want to be able to run the football. We want to be able to throw play action. We want to be able to be efficient, be good on third downs, and protect the ball. And those are the things we've really focused on. And I think going into year 2 now, it's still a matter, okay, who are our playmakers and how do we get on the ball? And that's kind of what we've been focusing on all spring and summer.
Chip, I'm curious if you're a numbers guy. We were able to talk with the defensive line coach, Ted Monachino, recently, and he kind of referenced there still being art in the game, and it's not just about the numbers, but we've talked to a variety of coaches over the years who are very much about the numbers. So are you a numbers guy, and are there specific numbers that maybe when you're grading previous seasons or you're projecting ahead that you kind of want to hit as a benchmark?
Are you talking about like analytics in the numbers, or are you talking about stat
analytics? And it could be, I was looking, for example, UNC last year led the ACC in third down conversion rate, and we're top 10 nationally, which is really good. Does that matter to you that, hey, we need to be top 10 or we need to be top 25?
I think, that's a good question. I think as an offense, if you think about it, playing good offense still really revolves around, being able to really execute in all phases. In other words, third down, like you mentioned, red zone offense, protecting the ball, creating explosives. Those are all things to play good offense you have to do. So we do chart those things. Those are things that we make sure that we look at each and every week. Our goal is to have, X number. We need 10 explosive every game, whether they're run or pass. We need to be above 50% on third downs. If you're 50% or above on third down percentage, you'll probably lead the country or be close to it. And we were that for a lot of the year. Red zone scoring, making sure that we get points in the red zone. Then you kind of narrow it down even more. We want touchdowns in the red zone instead of field goals, which is an area that we still want to improve on. But overall, the numbers are important because they give you a reference point. But at the end of the day, it's about winning. It's about winning the game, whatever it takes to win the game. And there's some games where we may not be as efficient as another one, but we still got to figure a way to win the game. I think that's the most important thing. The biggest stat that we want to do is we want to emphasize is winning the game.
After this, well, actually, really, I guess probably before the season officially ended with the bowl game. Of course, you have to get involved with the transfer portal when it comes to the quarterbacks, with Drake leaving, just to kind of give yourself options. Y'all jumped pretty quickly on Max Johnson, who has a long pedigree and had some success in the SEC at 2 different stops. What did you like about his game? And now that you've been able to see him in spring and even into the summer, what kind of stands out about what he can bring to the unit?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is I knew Max from recruiting. When I was at Auburn, I recruited him, knew his family, knew what kind of person he was, knew what he was about, knew he loved ball, knew he was smart. The one thing about him that was somewhat a little different than some of these other guys that were backups at other places, he did have a lot of experience. He had, I think, 900 and something attempts in the SEC over the couple of years. So, he had he's played in a league that's pretty good. So all those things were things that are factors. And we wanted a guy to get here in spring and be able to go through spring and get to learn our system and us be able to learn him and so forth. So once I started recruiting him, and he made it pretty clear that this was a place he was really interested in. And as a staff, we fell in love with him and who he was and what he was about, and just felt like he was a great fit for us, and felt like that we were a great fit for him, and glad it worked out. This spring, I think, what I've seen from him, he's an accurate thrower. He's a big kid. If you've been around him yet, he's, almost, if he's not 6'5", he's close to it. He does a great job, kind of managing the team, being a guy that can communicate, very confident. You can tell he's played. Those are all good things. And I think for this spring, for him, it was about just learning our terminology, learning our system, and learning our players. And I think that's all important. And it seems like through the spring and summer that he's done a lot of that. Those guys have thrown on their own a ton, as well as the things we've been able to do with them. So I think we made a lot of progress, and fall camp's going to be a really competitive situation for us at that position.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and that's probably the number one thing that people talk about for Carolina football, obviously. With the transfer portal, and obviously you picked up Jacoby after or over the summer, but what are those conversations like with guys on the roster, Connor Harrell? And it's not just quarterback, it's other positions as well. But how do those conversations go when you're sort of mining the portal, trying to add talent, and you've got guys on the roster, and you sort of have to make that delicate balance there? I mean, just talk about that a little bit.
I think just being honest and saying, hey, here's where we are. Here's what I'm thinking. This is why we're going to do this. And I think that anytime you're honest with your players and you tell them exactly what you're thinking, and I think, Connor or any of the guys that were here would tell you that I did that. And I think that's important, because that bond between a coach and a player, and Coach Brown's huge on this. He talks about it all the time. Be upfront with them, be honest with them. That's all they want, is they want to know where they stand. There are no secrets here. We're going to make sure that we do that. And, that was handled the right way. And the guys that are here that they love being here. And so they're all, all in and want to be here and want to compete. And I think as long as, like I said, if you're honest and upfront with them, I don't think it's ever a problem. And that's what you're going to do. You're always going to sign the best player you can sign anyway, whether it's a freshman or not. So competition is part of it at this level. And, if you look around the country, the really good teams, they have 2 or 3 quarterbacks that can play. That's, if you look at it, I mean, the ones that don't. And unfortunately, I had a year in 2016 where I played 5 different quarterbacks due to injury. Florida State comes to mind last year, I guess. So they had they lost their guy and they weren't the same team. So you can never have enough depth at that position. You can never have enough quality depth at that position. And I think competition makes everybody better. So everybody here embraced it, and it's been good so far.
What have you seen from Connor since the bowl game? I mean, I guess the bowl game was his first opportunity to really get out there. He gets dinged up a little bit, and that was a hindrance. What have you seen from him as a person and a player over the last 6 months?
Yeah, he's worked his butt off. He's really trying to do everything he can do to improve and study the game. He's done a really good job of getting his body back healthy. He did get banged up in the bowl game a little bit, but he kept playing and kept competing, which I appreciated that. And that was his first really live action, the meaningful live action. And, he made some good plays, some wild plays, and then he made a couple you're like, I'd like to have that back. And he would feel the same way. But for the first time, I thought he handled himself pretty well. He's continuing to improve his all-around game. He's worked extremely hard in the weight room. He's been up here meeting, trying to learn and get better and improve his knowledge as well. And so just really, really proud of him and how he's progressed. And that's what this thing's about, is pushing each other, making each other improve. And like I said, have a great competition. And I think that makes our team better.
Chip, you mentioned the transfer portal, and it's kind of been an interesting thing that NIL and the transfer portal, while they're different things, they kind of came to be about the same time. So there's a lot of confluence there. And then you've got just the traditional recruiting measures. North Carolina is set to bring all the NIL collectives under one house August 1st, Oldwell management. What kind of role has NIL played in the recruiting process, both the high school ranks and the transfer portal? And with the Oldwell management getting ready to kick off here on August 1, how does that benefit the program, having everything kind of under one house?
Yeah, and from the nuts and bolts of that, how it benefits, I'm not sure. I do know this: we're well positioned to recruit here at UNC. The one thing that's a little different here is, the type of kids that we recruit here, they really need to do well academically to do well here. I mean, that's a fact. And so that does put you in a position where you got to do your research. You got to make sure kids are driven, in the classroom as well. And we have fabulous kids. I mean, we have those kind of kids on our team. And I think for me, recruiting quarterbacks, it's really sometimes pretty simple to see, is this guy in this for NIL money, or is this guy in this for development and for having an opportunity to play? It's pretty easy when you get on this side of it and start recruiting to figure out, what's important to kids and their families and so forth. And, my feeling is that I think NIL should be a piece of what we're using. But the number one thing is do they want to be at Carolina? Do they want to be here? Because if kids don't want to be here, it's probably not going to be the best fit for them. And as well as I do, they can pick up and go other places and so forth. So the one thing we do here is we have a great atmosphere. We have a great culture here where kids like being here. I think that's a testament to some kids that have come back from here, mentioning Jacoby as well, and kids that want to be here. And like I said, NIL is a huge part of it now in recruiting. But I also want kids from this position for sure at quarterback that the number one thing is they want to be developed. They want to come in here, and we've got a great tradition of developing guys and send them to the NFL. And our staff here is very, very good and a lot of experience as far as that goes. And so from the quarterback position, I think that's what I'm looking for. And, like I said, Max as well as Jacoby coming back here, I think all those things led me to really want those guys in our program.
You've been listening to Inside Carolina's Next Level with Greg Barnes and Tommy Ashley. Special thanks to the coaches that have joined us, but I also want to take a second to talk about our sponsors, Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. JohnnyT-Shirt.com and Johnny T-Shirt on East Franklin Street, your place to go to get your Inside Carolina gear. They've got all the swag. Football season's almost here. They've got the football jerseys. They've got NIL stuff. They've got the throwback white North Carolina football jerseys that are straight fire. If you're a jersey person, get your jerseys at Johnny T-Shirt. And if you're an Inside Carolina Premium subscriber, which if you're not, I suggest you do that ASAP because the season's here. Recruiting, basketball, football, all of that stuff falls under Inside Carolina's Premium subscription. And you get 10% off your Johnny T-Shirt order, either online or in person. Go see them. They're great folks. Or get with them online. Whatever you need, they take care of you for all your Carolina wants. Also, Congruity, congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. If you're a small to mid-sized business owner, you need to go to that link. You need to do their free assessment and let Darren and Matt's team, which is a local-based business that has blown up into a national-based business, you need to let them check out your business model, what you need, what they can do to help you, and then they can work with you and take care of all your needs as a business owner. They handle everything. You handle the business. They handle HR, their community service, their customer service, their technology, all you need at congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Free assessment for Inside Carolina folks. Can't beat it, folks. And now back to the Next Level interviews.
And when we talk about the portal, I know a lot of different coaches have different opinions on these kind of things. So I just want to ask yours. Do you like having a mix of maybe high school recruits that you can develop and then having guys in the portal that you can pull in as needed? Or would you prefer to lean one way or the other?
No, I think you definitely want to have a base high school to recruit from because there's still room there to develop. Unless you have, enough money that it doesn't matter, then you're going to have to develop some guys, right? So, and still, just because you got the money doesn't mean you can always get them. There are other factors involved. I do think that for me, it's nothing better than watching a kid come in as a freshman. And a lot of times it happens, I think, from the offense, like with O-linemen. Sometimes a high school lineman is going to take a little more time, right, to develop. He needs to put on 30 pounds. And just watching some guys run this morning that got here in January, I'm like, wow, that kid's been here 7 months. And look at him. His body's changed. There's still something really cool about that and watching those guys develop and grow into those players. But the portal does serve a great need for when you need to, patch a guy for this position or that position. I think that's what we've tried to use that for is when we've, needed to have someone that can come in and compete for a spot and be able to play. I think that's important. And, I'll be honest with you. I was a head coach when the portal first started, and I probably didn't handle it great, to be honest with you, because it was so different from anything I'd ever had before. You grow up in the 80s and 90s like I did, and my junior year we might be 3-7, but my senior year I thought we were going to win the state championship because I was a senior. And that's not, and I wasn't a great player by any means, but that's the way you grow up thinking. You guys probably grew up like that too, and it's just a different world we're in. And the first year, I know I didn't handle it great. I thought, oh, this guy, we put all this work into him, and that was really before NIL, legal NIL anyway. And so I think, since it's become the norm now, you have to adjust. You either adapt or you kind of die. So that's what we've done. And, I'm glad the players are getting things that they probably should have gotten all along. But at the same time, I think we're moving to a spot where we're going to have some regulations and some rules about it, which I think is what frustrated a lot of people early on. And it's moving to a better place. And Coach Brown says it all the time. College football's in. People still watching it. People still buying tickets. People are still doing it. So we have to adjust. And hats off to him. He does a great job of getting our people. And the old well is going to be it's going to be a factor for us for sure. And these people that are involved in that, we can't thank them enough, because that's the business we're in now, to compete at a high level.
You talk about handling the portal well. Do you think coaches coach differently now because of it?
I don't. I know we don't, or I don't see that myself for sure. I think the portal. I think that was a fear. I think, how do you go and discipline a guy when he can just pick up and leave, right? How are you gonna? But I do think there's a little bit of going in the portal for a player is a little bit scary, because if you look, there are some. If you're not one of the top players, there are some guys that go in the portal that have not found homes like they thought they were going to, and end up at either a lower level with less scholarship money, a level that doesn't give full scholarships or whatever. I know for sure that's happened. So I don't see that at all. And I think if you're into treating kids right and really just discipline and treating them like they're your own, I don't think you can go wrong. I've not changed any way of the style I've been coaching, nor is anybody on our staff that I can tell. And like I said, it's just a sign of the times. And, the one thing about it, if a guy gets unhappy and leaves, you'd rather him leave than be unhappy and be a problem in the locker room. And luckily we don't have that. We got great kids, and at least now you can go get somebody to replace him. That'd be the way I'd look at it.
Yeah, that's a great point there about the locker room, because it matters 100%, especially in college. One more question I have, and then I'll let Greg wrap it, is Darwin Barlow comes in. You mentioned Marion off the top, obviously a homegrown kid.
Right.
Great year last year. Ideally, if you had a crystal ball, and we were talking now, and we were talking in December, what does that rotation look like between those two guys?
It's a good question. Amarian is going to get his for sure. We all understand that. And I think we were really honest about that in the recruiting process. But, getting his 20 to 25 carries, he may get some other touches in the pass game. We try to do a great job getting our backs out. We've put more on our quarterbacks than in the past last year of getting the protection right so the back can get out. I think Amarian caught 20, 25 balls or something like that, and he's pretty good at it. So that's important. But I think if we could get that balance where we understand, and we were very honest with Darwin when he came to visit, he understands that. But the one thing about Darwin, he's a big back like Amarian, and getting him 10 to 15 carries would be great. For playing well and getting a lot of snaps. I think that's very feasible. I think, Caleb Hood is looks great right now. Getting him to stay healthy would add a third guy. And then, obviously I think we have the freshman Bullet that's in here that does a great job as well for a freshman. He came in, Davion Goss, I said Bullet, Davion Goss, he came in, and as a freshman, for me, when I see a freshman that understands pass protection and can step in there and pass protect, that's impressive. That's the most impressive thing I saw from him this spring. He's very smart. He understands protections, and he's physical. We knew he could run the football. So, you got at least those four guys there, and you're going to need them at some point. You know how guys get banged up. But I think in a perfect world, we all understand Amarian. He's one of our best players. We have to make sure that he gets his touches. But I think there's definitely a role there for Darwin as well as Caleb and Davion as well.
Chip, we'll talk more about wide receiver and tight end as we get into training camp, because you've got some veteran quality pieces coming back, and you've also got some very talented young guys. So that should be exciting at those two positions. I think the position, though, that I want to close the show on is offensive line. And just because there's been a lot of turnover, Willie Lampkin is kind of a veteran there now, even though he was a fresh face last year. Yeah. You mentioned having the entire offensive staff back. Randy Clements, of course, is part of that. What are some strengths and maybe some concerns with that offensive line group as you enter training camp?
Yeah, I think first of all, starting with Willie, he just he becomes now the leader of that group just by default, right? Before we even take a snap, but his personality also makes him that way. He had a great year last year for us. He came in as a guy with kind of a chip on his shoulder, transferring from Coastal Carolina, and played great for us. And we're excited. We missed him a game or two, I think, with an ankle, and we missed him when he was out. But we knew we were going to lose some guys after the season, so we had to go into the portal to get us some immediate help. And I think that's where when we were talking about the portal earlier, the portal, high school linemen sometimes take some time to develop, and we understood that. So we went out and we got some guys, and I'm really excited about them. Austin Blasky is transferred here from Georgia. He's a guy that's played center and guard. He's played a lot of center for us. He brings some toughness. He brings some. He's been at a good program, and now he wanted to be able to run his own deal and have an opportunity to be a starter. And I think, for us, he's been a huge shot in the arm, just really been good as far as being a leader and brought some toughness to us. I think, all those things that we needed with this group. When you have some new guys and you have a younger offensive line coming back, because you mentioned it, we lost some productive guys, then we need that. And I think that's been huge. Jakiah Leftwich, a transfer from Georgia Tech as well. He's played tackle, he's played guard, he's moved around a little bit, and it's a guy that's played. It's a veteran guy that's played some, as well as Blasky. So those are two guys that have played that'll bring some depth in there as well. And then Howard, our left tackle from North Texas. I mean, the guy is 6'8", he's 330 pounds. I mean, he's huge and he's long. He's still a young player. He's got 3 years to play, and been totally impressed with him this spring. I think he's a guy that the sky's the limit for him. I think he's an NFL guy for sure. And now he's still got it. He doesn't have a lot of experience, so he's still going to learn. But I was really impressed with him. And then the other new guy, Zach Greenberg, I think for a guy that transferring up. When I was at Auburn, we took a transfer from UMass, a kid that had went there as a tight end, and this was in 2017 before a lot of this was happening. And he graduated. Back then, only graduates could transfer. And he couldn't get in the graduate school at UMass. And he had like a 3.8 or 9, but I guess it was a hard deal for him to get in. So he came to Auburn, and he ended up starting in the O-line for us, and now is playing in the NFL. And those stories are some of those guys when they come from a lower level, like Willie Lampkin, they have a little something to prove. Zach Greenberg, I think, is that kind of guy. So we have those 4 newcomers, I think, that are going to add some depth. But the one thing I was really proud of in the spring was, 2 guys. I think Malik Langham is a guy that really, really came on at left guard for us. He's a guy that I think is made a lot of progress. And I think Trey made a lot of progress too at right tackle. I think those 2 guys, the whole key is to have 8 guys that can play. And so competition, again, just like we talked about the quarterback position, when you have competition, it makes everybody better and it makes everybody improve. And I think those guys have done that. And the one thing that I do want to say is I think that unit together is when you have great leadership from the O-line, you're going to have a good football team. So far, I've loved the way those guys have gelled. They bring an edge to them. They play with an edge. And that's something I hope is going to make us very successful and make that unit successful.
Coach Lindsey, last question. What's the next 10 days, 2 weeks look like before the start of fall camp look like for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings and organizational and practicing. Been game planning on Minnesota, getting ready for that. The start of fall camp. There's always a lot of things that go into that as well, as far as what the practices look like and so forth, and all that stuff's been laid out. But I think the big thing is Monday when everybody's back in together is getting everybody back in meetings together on the same page. It's an exciting time. This is one of those times of the year as a coach. You look forward to vacation because you go through camps and recruiting in June and you're ready to get, on vacation for a couple of weeks. But then after a couple of weeks, you're kind of like, hey, let's get this thing going. Let's get ready. And that's kind of where we all are right now. I've seen some of the other coaches pop in and out of here. So the next 2 weeks are a grind for us. It's exciting time, though. It's it's a new season, and with new season comes new challenges, but a lot of great opportunities, and we're looking forward to it for sure.
Indeed. That is Chip Lindsey, North Carolina offensive coordinator. That's Greg Barnes. I'm Tommy Ashley. This has been Next Level. Coach, always appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Coach.